Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablin.
Hello and welcome to episode 40 of the Queen City Music Podcast and the first episode of 2021. As we head into the new year, I'm sure everyone has hopes that this year will be better than the last. Looking into the year ahead, there are some wonderful interviews I'm excited to share with you, and this month's guests are no exception. Today I'm speaking with Brennan, Dylan, and Joe, who are members of Pluto Gang, a self-described jam soul band. Pluto Gang are new on the Charlotte scene and have only been together for about a year. However, in that short time, the band has been able to release the single Moggy Oxvine and the full-length album Better Out Here. The group features Brennan Beck on vocals, Dylan Crawford on guitar and vocals, Wood Britton on guitar, Joe May on keyboards and vocals, Pat Rogers on bass, and Wilson Smith on percussion. Today in the studio, once again, I have Brennan, Dylan, and Joe with me from Pluto Gang. Hey guys, thanks for coming on the podcast today. It's so good to have three of you. And I've held up 6 fingers as I do it. That's great. So you guys want to jump in. Are you originally from the Charlotte area? Dylan.
No, so Brendan and I are both from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, so eastern North Carolina, a little east of Raleigh. Joe's from Raleigh.
All over.
Yeah, I guess all over. Yeah.
Raleigh via Brazil.
Via Brazil. Okay. Okay. How long have you guys been doing music? Can you fill me in on about your music backgrounds? Joe, you want to start?
Actively? All right. Let's tier this response. Let's tier this response. Tier 1 of like actively creating and putting music out there. A year and a half with these guys. Me and Brennan have been in bands, like just like for fun, for the last like 6 years.
Wow.
I'd say. Like my dad was a professional musician for 20 years, so I was the 2-year-old with the big can headphones at every show that was like kind of had music theory osmoted into my brain. So it's just kind of always been around, but just, constantly escalating degrees of engagement.
Okay. Brandon, how about you?
I grew up singing, in high school and whatnot. I was, in the chorus, did some like plays in high school. But I never really took it seriously. I don't know, when I went to college, I didn't really think about it again. I was never like actively trying to pursue a band or anything until later in college.
Right.
And Joe and I started a band senior year of college. And that's kind of when I started taking it a little bit more seriously, and trying to get better, I guess.
Okay.
So I would say seriously probably about 5 or 6 years. But I've always had a big musical influence growing up as well. My dad was, and he played the drums growing up. And my whole family is very musical. So that's about it for me.
Dylan?
Yeah, and I think I took guitar lessons for a couple years starting in 4th grade. And then I've been, playing guitar ever since. I was in the school chorus and plays and stuff too. That's kind of when I started singing, I guess, a little bit. And then obviously I took I took a few music classes in college. Took a songwriting class, a jazz improv class, and a rock, it was called Make Rock. So it was like a kind of rock songwriting and rock recording class. So I played in a couple bands in college and a couple projects and sat in with a few bands, like their band in college. So I'd say I've been doing it for a while. But yeah, by far the most serious band has been this one for the last year. So, never really worked on an album or anything until this year.
So did you guys always have a desire to create your own music? Because you guys have been, relatively just got together and then just started doing some of your own stuff and put out an album, which we'll get to later in a pandemic.
You can't play gigs. We had a lot of time to work on stuff. So, like, the trajectory of it was very interesting. Dylan, like, lightning rodded Moggy Oxvine out of the sky on, like, a random Friday night and just... Yeah. We recorded that in, like, 48 hours, pretty much.
So that's one of the singles we got.
Yeah, and we
got
put
it.
that out, and it was just like met with such a good response. And then the pandemic started 4 weeks after that. So then we were like, well, people seem to like this.
And then you guys just hit the road running with all the songs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that was definitely my first recording experience. Probably all of ours.
Yeah, for sure.
And like Joe said, we put that together really quickly. We had a lot of friends that supported it and helped us share it, and kind of took off a lot. Got a lot more listens than we were expecting. So
Right.
And I mean, it was fun recording. We all liked putting that together and kind of seeing how it sounds after everybody gets their part in. So I think from that experience, we kind of got into the recording, especially because of the pandemic. Yeah.
Huh. So let's backtrack just a little bit before we get into the band and the recording process and all that. How did the band get together? Because you guys formed back in, so we just got into 2021. You guys got together in 2019.
Yeah, in the summer.
So fill us in. How'd you guys get together?
So as I mentioned, Joe and I we were in a band in college together, senior year.
Whose name we will not repeat.
So, and we never really had any ambitions to write anything original. It was mostly just playing covers at parties and stuff like that. It wasn't really even about the money either. We just wanted to have fun and wanted to share music with people. And so Joe and I moved to Charlotte after our senior year of college in 2017. We'd always kind of talked about forming a band, never really seriously.
Well, I was playing with Pat in another band while we were talking about all this.
Yeah. And so we needed a guitarist mainly, and Dylan's girlfriend lived in Charlotte.
Shout out Caroline.
Yeah, so we were always pestering him, trying to get him to move down here, and August of 2019, he finally moved down, and about a week later, we played our first, had our first, jam session, and went well, and it just kind of escalated from there.
All right. Yeah. So how did you guys come up with the band name, the Pluto Gang? Where does that come from?
Oh, see, there I'm at a crossroads here of whether I could keep a mystery alive or bear all on year one.
We've chosen not to discuss it.
It's a really, really funny scene from a really good book.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah. We can end the podcast now.
How did you guys get the music together? So when I say that, I mean, was there a vision? We were talking about it before we started recording, but fill in the listeners. You guys you're a soul jam band. What did you have a vision of that before you started writing? Did you just start writing the tunes and that's what came out? Or did you all get together and say, hey, we're going to do a soul jam band?
It was as organic as possible. It was Jackson Pollock at a blank canvas, throwing layers down. And so, again, each of us brings a very different lens, but we all listen to the same umbrella of music. And it was just like a lather, rinse, repeat wash cycle of I had come up with something and Dylan would rearrange the parts, and then Wood would add a different guitar solo vision there. Brennan, you would completely rewrite all of the vocal melodies for pretty much everything. And it just was how many times can we rub off on each other and keep having positive influences?
So it sounds like it's a group process for songwriting. Does anybody come directly in and let's say that Dylan's like, hey, I've got all these parts. I've got this song done. And then maybe Brennan comes in with lyrics over the top, or does somebody write the whole song and come to the band and say, hey, put your stank on it?
All of the songs were completely written and demoed before we started washing it, cleaning it up.
No, is there somebody who's the main songwriter who writes most of the parts, or it's just a group effort?
All over.
Yeah, so I mean, on our first album, I think 4 of the songs were written by Dylan, 3 were written by Joe. So 4 written by Joe, 3 by Dylan, 1 by Wood.
Okay. Now we're gonna have the first Beck song on the next album.
Yeah, so it's been interesting because we have these demos that were created individually by people in the band,
with pretty much all the parts. Almost,
right? A bunch
of parts in there, but
and then when we started recording, We didn't really like take a step back before and think about the vision. It just kind of happened. Everybody putting their influence into the songs, and then it's funny because the songs sound so different. When Joe writes a song versus when Dylan writes a song, but once we all come in together and put our parts on it and whatnot, it kind of has the same sound. So that's been something interesting for us as well, is kind of seeing how the song comes out versus how the demo originally sounded and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm actually going to take us on our first tangent, only 15 minutes in. I anticipate many more to come out of my mouth. That is the merit of self-production and the beauty afforded to you in the modern era of music. We were arranging while we were recording. At no point were we bound and constrained by time and budget of a studio, of having to be like, we need to go in here and be assassins and execute every part within 4 session days. Because we could sit around and track a part, and Dylan would say, no, Wood, you need to come back over, and we need to do this way, because I wrote this part, and it would mesh really well with that. And we were arranging every song in real time while we were producing it. Like, with Free Time, we had finished the whole song, and Brennan, you were like, what if we changed the intro? There's an intro that no one will ever hear that we scrapped after the song was done, and Brennan goes like, what if we scrapped this piano intro and had a vocal intro and did this? And we, flying the ship while we're building it, or the plane, and we just like totally rehashed the whole thing in the 11th hour.
That's the modern recording process.
Oh, it's so fun. It's a luxury afforded to you by like autonomous recording.
So recording, I think when we were talking earlier, you're doing everything from home.
Yeah, most of the album was recorded in my bedroom. Okay,
so just being that the case, so let's say that Dylan, you come over to record a part. Have you worked out your parts already before you come over? Because, and I say that knowing like I'm sitting at home recording stuff for my EP, and I'm like, I hate a part, and I need to leave for a couple of days, and then let it filter in. So, can you stay over Joe's for like, the entire day sitting there recording parts? Or do you like, hey man, I'm going to take this home and go work with it and then come back?
I'd say it could go either way. I mean, I'd say sometimes I'd walk in knowing exactly what I was going to play. I remember there was one day I was over there and Wood was working on some rhythm guitar. And I was just like walking around in another room with my guitar unplugged, playing this little, edge type lick thing, and and came back in. I was like, I recorded it on my phone. I was like, I need to remember this for when I go back in there, and so it kind of happens both ways. I would say. I
remember that too. That was when we were doing Mellow Yellow.
There was one with Free Time I was thinking about.
Oh, true.
Like the part that I play in the chorus of Free Time.
So some of the songs, half of the songs we had been playing live for a while, and it was really easy to translate it. Half of them we developed while we were recording it. Okay. Like with Free Time, Free Time, I was like, Wood and Dylan, both of y'all come over at the same time, and let's write guitar parts. And I think we wrote and tracked in the same day. And, that's what made it onto the album.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just kind of us both noodling around until the two parts, meshed.
Right.
I mean, layering is like the most important thing in making sure all the parts lock into each other. So it's a lot of iteration. I mean, we would record parts and then go back and be like, that guitar part we recorded 2 months earlier sucks. That has to go. And then we would redo that.
So Brennan, are you are you writing the lyrics for this, or are you just handling the melodies? What's your role?
It's for the first album, mostly just melodies, especially because the songs were mostly written before we went into the studio. Joe actually has a guy, Kevin, who writes a lot of the lyrics in his songs.
I write everything with him. We duo everything.
And then Dylan wrote his songs by himself. It was mostly the melodies, especially because, like I said, all the songs were already written. But going into the new album, I think that's something that, like, I have a song that I wrote the lyrics for and the melody for.
And it's bad. Well, it's good.
It was just kind of how the first album happened, just because we already had a lot of good material and we didn't want to just write all new songs since we already had that material.
Sure.
Yeah. So going forward, it's going to be a little bit different, I would say. But yeah, the first one's mostly just melodies, no lyrics or anything like that.
Brennan's being super modest right now. I would write songs for my very mid-range rocky voice, and then Brennan would be like, well, I can't sing this because this isn't me, and I would be like, all right, go nuts. And then like he would come over 2 days later with a totally rewritten melody, and we're just like, yes, this is it, this is it, that's the X Factor. That's how I felt with Failure to Communicate. That was like always a good song that like I didn't have like the sheen on the demo, and then like you just went nuts with it, and V 2.0 was pretty tight.
So, Joe, are you pretty much taking on the role of engineer, producer, and mastering engineer? Is that your...
Yeah,
wearing
and
a triple hat?
Pest and nuisance to the band.
Well, you guys all sitting around then? If Joe's mixing, do you guys sit around and... Dylan, do you sit over his shoulder and go, no, that guitar needs to come up a little bit? Brennan, you're like, I don't like the reverb on those vocals. You need to do this.
I'd say a lot of that happens on the spot, but then there's the many late hours that Joe is doing while we're sleeping, where he is tweaking everything and sending five copies at once at 2 a.m. and being like, y'all check this and make sure which one do you like best, and then.
So, Joe, how have your recording skills on your software improved over this pandemic since you guys have been doing an album?
Oh, it's insane. I actually just made a demo the other day for the first time. I hadn't like made a demo in a year. And I think I like made a whole like 6-minute demo in 30 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, this is like... So, I'm not classically trained in production. I never studied it. I haven't done any online classes. It is all by ear and Googling like, I want something to sound like this. So we did it. We basically broke every single rule on how you should mix. But I don't really care because I like the way it sounds. We mixed
that's the ultimate judge, right?
Oh yeah. We mixed every track on the spot. So standard form for a lot of people is record every track, get everything, gain stage everything, set your faders, and then mix the track. I would we would track drums and keys, and then like when we would record Dylan's guitar, we were doing the, automating where we're going to add extra chorus in and like adding how much delay and compression. We did all of that on the spot. And then mixing at the end was just levels. We did like the whole coloring of every track that day because we had time to. Yeah.
But I think, I could be wrong, but I think that might be more of the organic process that's going to happen in digital recording studios at home today.
For sure.
Rather than what used to be, let's say, 40 or 50 years ago when people were recording in the studio. And
they had boards.
Boards, people talking, and they kept that in. The new organic process might be like, this is how we record it. We're not doing it by the book. And that's going to give that album or that band their particular sound. And maybe, I don't know, 10 years down the line, when Pluto Gang has developed more and you've learned more about recording, you might be like, oh, this is the way I got to do it now. This is the way, I'm not going to do it like that. It's just like learning an instrument. The studio is the same thing. You're learning you're learning as you go, and you're developing your skills and refining them. And it's going to become better and better, I would imagine.
I feel like it was already better and better. Yeah. Like some of the songs on the album were recorded like 6 months apart, and I can hear it. I'll be listening to a track. I was like, "Whoa, why did we mix that way?"
All right, so moving on, we're talking about the album, but did you guys put out Moggy Oxvine first? That was your first studio recording, but that's your single that you guys put out. Can you guys fill me in about that? How did that come about?
Yeah, so that song, it was kind of an idea that I always had, like the story in the song was an idea that I came up with in college, but I just never got around to writing it. And, one day I came home from Thanksgiving a day earlier than we were planning on. So I was in Charlotte. Everyone was at Thanksgiving with their families. I was just sitting there, so I just was like, I'm going to write this song, and I had some chords that I'd just written.
You drank a bit of eggnog that night, too.
And some eggnog was involved, and a few hours later, I had this song in a demo, sent it out, and then I don't know, I think we hit your bed, we went into your bedroom in the next week. And
no, dude, I had to buy a mic on Amazon. I didn't have a recording mic, and we just had like a little 2-channel interface, and we're like, yeah, this is enough.
We were doing it all up in your loft.
Oh,
too.
yeah, we were
I was
doing it
like,
in the loft. Oh, my God, I can't believe we were recording stuff up there. There's so much echo.
And we quickly learned that that's not the way I'm going to get this done.
I don't think it's single.
Yeah.
But you did do it. Hey, man, I recorded all my stuff off of a 2-channel M-Box on a old version of Pro Tools. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is.
Remember, we did that. We did that in one weekend, like 90% of it. And then, like, we had, like, pretty much just started to, like, actualize Pluto Gang and, like, become really good friends with all of the guys in the band and the other 3 of us with Pat, Wood, and Wilson. And then we were like, oh, wait, we're a band. Like, this is serious. Like, we need to, like, revisit this. Like, get Wood's guitar tracks on there and not just keep everything that we did in 36, 48 hours. And and then we were just sitting there. Like, I didn't even know what mastering was. I just, like, I just bumped the gain up and then, like, put a limiter on there, and that was enough. And I didn't know anything about metering, like loudness units or RMS. We just like, yeah, this sounds good in my car, so this should be good enough for Spotify. And then like sent it off. And I've looked back later now that I like have studied like audio levels and stuff like that. And I'm like, by miraculous chance, like the loudness unit measurement that you use, we nailed it. Like just by like putting like a random thing to kick the gain up, we landed perfectly at like 11 LUFs, which is we do 10 on everything for the music nerds, and we just like random chance was competitive in loudness with like commercial stuff, and it hasn't. That song doesn't stop streaming. It's really weird. Like we keep putting out new stuff that I think is way better produced, and people keep listening to the first one.
Hey, that's good. It's the first thing that they latch onto from you, and hopefully they leads them down the wormhole and listen to the rest of the album. Speaking of which, then how far out after Moggy Oxfine came out did you guys put out Better Out Here? How did that? How long did that process take?
So
10 months.
Yeah.
Wait, was it 10 months different, or 10 months that the the album came out afterwards?
Yeah, so it was 10 months out. So we put Moggy out in, January 2020, and the album came out in November 2020.
Yep.
So, yeah, about 10, 11 months.
10 months and 1 day.
Yeah, and so, I mean, between there, we did put out 3 singles that are on the album.
Right.
So,
And that was Plasmo Desmata, Wildfire, and Trouble Looks Like Honey.
yeah. So we were kind of recording those in the, between time there. So we got those 3 down, and then the other 5 on the album we kind of recorded a lot quicker than we were used to.
Right.
We got efficient.
Yeah, we did get efficient. We were all kind of learning how it worked, so that helps.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty continuous between January and November of recording for us.
That sounds pretty good, man, that you guys could put it all together real fast.
Yeah.
Pandemic helped.
That's pandemic for you. Well, I'll say, I mean, I came across you guys while going to my partner's webpage, Records on the Wall. So I started reading about you guys. I was like, oh, okay, let me check out this band that's a local band. And then I go check out, the YouTube page, and the first tune that comes up, of course, Trouble Looks Like Honey. And I don't know why you didn't put that out as a single. Well, actually you did, and it's a group of 3. Dude, that's a great song. I was like, oh, I like this. I got to listen to the rest of this album. And I really like what you guys have done. It sounds really good. The songs are good. The production is good. Congratulations, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dylan wrote that one. He's nice with it.
Hey, speaking of that, we're gonna take a listen to Free Time. Is that all right? And then we'll come back and talk about the tune.
Yeah, sounds great.
It works.
'Cause free love's just about getting late, and free time just means that you're not getting paid. Broken clocks still right, still twice a day. So mean what you say, or break away and save it up for a holiday. Time flows on way late and risk gets done by the riddle maker's fist. Questions of sands in a glass, turn it over, count as it passes. 2 minutes of your time should be enough. 3 days and you find it
Guys, Free Time, fantastic tune. So how did this song come about? What was the writing process for that? Can you guys fill me in?
I wrote that chord progression like 3 years ago. And I've just been sitting on it. I always thought that it was going to be called Cloud Soil. I came up with that. I was like, that's a heady name. We should do that.
Cloud Soil. Sounds like a progressive rock band.
Yeah. And so I was, last November, so 2019, I went up to this cabin up on Smith Mountain Lake, tiny little, there was like a bed in the middle of the room, and we just like moved everything, and we slept 3 people in there and just set up all the instruments. It was me, my buddy Kevin Eberhardt, and my buddy Stephen Walsh, who I write all my songs with the 3 of them. We've been like doing music stuff for years. I just went on a big backpacking trip in Wyoming with Kevin to go like sit in a tent and write stuff for 2 weeks. So, dear friends.
So you bringing guitars when you're writing them, or are you bringing like a MIDI keyboard to
It was
stuff?
just a keyboard, a drum machine, and a guitar, and we just made like 4-track demos. Right? We just get the idea down and move on. And we had written. We wrote 5 songs that weekend. We had written and recorded "Failure to Communicate," "Plasma Desmata," "High Tide," one called "Pop Flu," which didn't make it on the album. And it was like the very last night. We had to like check out early in the morning. We hadn't taken anything down, and I'm as soft as it gets. So I was going to bed, and I was like, "Oh, guys, before I go to bed, I have this like instrumental loop that I've had for like 2 years," and we joked that Kevin lightning rodded it out of the sky. We were just like sitting there, and it was just like within 30 minutes, we had like a melody and lyrics, and we're like, all right, cool, let's go to bed.
That's the way it works. Sometimes they come fast, and sometimes they don't.
It came so fast, and then we Pluto Gangified it, and it came out totally different than the demo. And that's where all like the layering and the sexy vocals happened. It was fun. It's just a lot of iteration.
Very cool. And when you're recording in that process, not Free Time, that particular song, but when you're doing that kind of stuff and you're bringing it back to the band, do the other guys have any input into changes that they would like to make on the song?
Yeah, like you redid the whole intro.
Yeah, so I can't even remember what the first iteration of it was.
It was a piano chord progression that was impossible to play. It was like you needed you couldn't reach it.
Yeah, so I remember. So I recorded the vocals one day over at Joe's. And Joe like Googled some sort of effect.
The telephone effect, and was jokingly putting it over the chorus. And I was like, wait, this actually sounds pretty sweet. Why don't we just put this in this effect at the intro, and just have the chorus start the song, and then, kick it into how the song, sounds like it does.
Right.
So yeah, we totally redid the intro there. I'm not sure how it worked with there's a piano solo and a guitar solo in there, so
we added the bridge later.
Yeah, we added the bridge later. So I mean, it's more of just kind of expanding the songs in terms of length to get some solos in there and stuff like that. Right. But yeah.
Love solos.
Once somebody comes in with the demo, we do all kind of throw our ideas in, and the song can turn out to be much different than it was previously.
Huh. Yeah. All right, so you guys also sent me a second song, and we kind of laughed about it at the beginning. What is the name of it? Is it Miss? Is it Mize? Is it MYSS? What is the name of the song?
Choose your own adventure.
I think we're going with Mice, maybe.
Dylan, you wrote it. You get to decide.
I just want to call it Mellow Yellow Sunshine Superman.
So that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, we talked about it. Can you guys fill us in on that story?
Yeah. So that one I actually wrote for in my songwriting class in college. It was our first assignment, and it was we had to use something called the cut-up technique, where you take 2 different pieces of anything, newspaper, anything, cut them apart, put them together, and then try to connect the lines. Yeah. So I took a Jimi Hendrix interview and a Fish concert review, put them together, and that's how the whole thing came out. And Hendrix was talking about Mellow Yellow and then Sunshine Superman down here, so I was like, that's the perfect, like, it's about a guy.
You, like, didn't even know who Donovan was.
Yeah, I didn't know who Donovan was at all. I just, like, I didn't know he was even referring to songs. I thought he was just talking about some, 60s, 70s lingo. So I was like, all right, Mellow Yellow Sunshine Superman, that's the perfect, like, that's the guy who the song's going to be about. And then it just, that was just it.
That's awesome. I love it.
I remember I was actually studying for a test in the library, and I was like, I have to write this song. Like, I had the idea in my mind. I was like, I have to go home and write this song. So my grade on the test probably suffered.
But it was worth it. You came out with a tune.
It's worth it. It's
Yeah,
worth
but
it.
you're not getting
That is now on an album.
that
So.
test 6 years later, so who cares?
There you go. Well, hey, let's take a listen to MYSS, otherwise known as Mellow Yellow Sunshine Superman. Guys, definitely another great track. So, I've got a interesting question I've posed to a couple other groups. You guys put out this album, Better Out Here. You've got, 8 tracks on the recording?
Yeah.
So, is there a reason that you guys decided to put out what's considered a full-length recording rather than an EP? Because almost the current trend today I see is a lot of groups are not putting out full-length albums anymore. They're putting out numerous EPs. So what you guys could have chosen to do is taken this album, cut it into 2 parts, and put out 2 separate EPs with lesser tracks. Is there a reason you guys chose to do a full-length album as opposed to putting out smaller sets of recordings?
So these mediums are all dying. So it was arbitrary decisions based on like digital optimization.
Well, hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean that these mediums are all dying? What do you mean by that?
Like how you put stuff out, and we actually like Spotify basically penalizes you for putting out long releases. If you were to do everything for Spotify, you'd be better off to do a single every 28 days and never have any collection of songs. However,
interesting.
So there's 2 factors that played into that. One was that if you put out an EP now, streaming services lump EPs with singles. So there's no differentiation if you go to someone's profile. It's really easy for EPs to get lost in like the barrage of singles that are now market standard. The other thing is this album is a very particular snapshot in time. It is us not having gigs and just hustling to put out an album. The name kind of reflects that. It was like, I mean, it's basically a not a concept album, but it's a narrative snapshot. So it wouldn't make sense to split any of it up because they kind of belong together. The same way that like Moggy Oxfine shouldn't be on the album because that was from a totally different period and set of intents. It's cool too to like, I think an album signifies a point in time like EPs and singles don't do, where you can like tell the story of this was us in 2020. And I think that sentiment is still valuable.
I think that's pretty well put, actually. I mean, to hear about the snapshot. I have a friend who's a recording artist, and he discussed putting out a recording as an artistic statement. Basically, this is my artistic statement for this period of time. He does classical guitar, so he put out like a set of Bach music, and it was like, this is what this statement is of this. Whereas maybe with a band, it's like, this is what we were sounding at this point in time, which is pretty interesting to think about. Where a lot of people don't even think about that today. A lot of people might say, I'm not even going to be doing that. And just like you were just saying a moment ago, I'm just going to put out singles. And that's going to be that.
You would probably get more listens if you did that.
Well, you guys aren't doing half bad anyway. You've got seems to be developing a little reputation already.
It's bizarre.
Shout out to our friends who shared it all and streamed it and everything.
Yeah, we got to give respect to the friends. We had a lot of people sharing it on social media, which is kind of how the whole thing started.
It's all that matters now in like the algorithm era.
Oh, so what you're saying is you have to actually have friends when you put music out.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't hurt.
So when you guys are out performing, here's my curiosity. You are defining yourselves as a jam soul band. How much jamming are you guys doing on the tunes? Are you dragging the tunes out for 15 minutes or so with solos? Are you taking extended intros? What are you guys doing?
We never know.
Yeah. It's been interesting how that kind of works. We our strategy so far, like while we're still playing together and learning how to play together and stuff like that, is we have a show coming up. We kind of put together the songs we're going to play in that order that we're going to play them. And then, we go into a rehearsal and, just kind of see what happens.
We never know which ones are going to be XL.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of hash out the details in the rehearsal, and then when you go to play it live, something else could happen. So, yeah, it's kind of, we do have a good bit of improv in terms of the live performances on what's going to happen and what songs are going to be 15 to 20 minutes long and what songs are going to be 5 minutes long. So,
Moggy Oxfine's always going to be 20 minutes.
And
Plasma Desmata is always long.
Yeah. Some songs we've got, written kind of jam sections where we've got specific set of chords that we've written out to jam over, but sometimes, you go into something and just say, let's just do it and see what happens.
And then we fall into medley world all the time. Where like we'll start playing something in A and Wood will give me this like ridiculous look from across the stage and I'll start playing like some Allman Brothers deep cut. like looking at Dylan like, you know how to play this one, right? And then like next thing you know we're playing Elizabeth Reed and we've never played it in rehearsal before.
Well, that's the thing. It's real interesting to me. I mean, I always used to be a studio recording person. Like, I want to hear that. I think as I got older, I started to really appreciate that you can't tell what a band is like until you've seen them live. Because what they put out in the studio may not be what you're going to hear live. Case in point, I got into the old band Cream, Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce. And I listened to their studio recordings, and I always loved their studio recordings. And then I started to listen to some live stuff. And what you got live was like completely different than what you were getting in the studio recording. I mean, these guys would sit there for 20 minutes and jam out a song. And they were essentially, as far as I realized, one of the first jam bands, if not the first jam band that would, do these massive extended solos. So do you think you guys at some point might do a live recording like off the board and release some of that stuff so that folks get a sense of what Pluto Gang is like live?
We just got the gear and technology to be able to do that. So that's 2021 is going to be live boards and videos.
Yeah, I think that's we kind of realized, we have a lot of studio stuff, and especially with the pandemic, people haven't really had the chance to see us live, and we've kind of always, our perspective going into this was to be more of a live band versus a studio recording band and stuff like that. Obviously, the pandemic pushed that the opposite way. But yeah, our next thing and the media we want to get out is definitely live performances so people can see that. And like Joe said, we just in December, like a month ago, we bought a mixer and everything to be able to record everything at once. And
GoPros.
Yeah, we got GoPros to be able to put videos together so that we can share that.
Here's the other thing to consider. We're a 6-person band, so getting multi-track audio is no small feat for us.
Right.
I mean, we require 14 to 16 inputs anytime we do anything. So, the gear has been the big limiting factor, and now we're there. Now we've been able to reinvest enough from what small shows we have had to do that.
I'm curious. I don't know how it affects you guys, but so I'm on Amazon Prime. I don't know if you guys have Amazon Prime to watch movies. I came across this movie called Instaband, and it was about younger bands, and it was pretty much essentially how they're using social media today. And I was real curious that you guys as a younger band, what role social media has with you guys. I know you touched upon, when you released the songs, you had friends sharing it and getting stuff out. Do you guys do a lot of that social media, quote unquote, publicity?
Probably half the time we do things is for social media, like
Instagram.
Yeah, for Instagram, because that's how you gain traction.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and for instance, when I was in college, I was like a social chair for our fraternity, and the way I found bands was through social media, and the way I quantified how much to pay for a band had to do with how many streams they had on Spotify and how many followers they had on Instagram, and that's just kind of the way that younger people look at, I guess, fame or that sort of thing.
Well, impressions are everything, and you have to have a body of work and a visual component to tell your story. So we've been really diligent about even as a young band creating that digital ecosystem that if someone hears the name, they can then say, oh well, let's see what's under the hood. And there's stuff there for you to get into.
Right.
So it's a whole game. It's I love it.
Are you guys, are you obsessed with it? Always putting stuff out on a daily basis, for people? Or are you kind of when we've got something, we'll put it out?
Yeah, it's mostly when we have something, we'll put it out. I mean, we try to keep people engaged, but especially right now, we don't really have anything to put out. So, yeah, I mean, we're not obsessed with it.
I'm obsessed.
Joe might be obsessed.
Yeah, if you watch the movie, if you have Amazon Prime, I'd recommend it. It's really crazy to see the length that some of these folks are going to. I mean, they're going oh, we just have to engage our audience. So we're showing them what we're eating for breakfast today, just to put content out every day, for people. And I'm like, wow.
We've definitely seen bands like that. I think that
let's save that one.
So, fellas, the Charlotte music scene. You guys are a young band, as we've been talking about. What's your take on the Charlotte music scene as a soul jam band? I think we talked before we started recording that Charlotte's got this kind of, or even that the region has got this soul style of music coming out. What's your take on it?
I would say we affiliate mostly with rock stuff. The scene is robust but scattered.
Yeah.
There isn't widespread coordination happening. There's people trying to do it. I was actually just, you were talking about Eric, and I was just meeting with Ryan from Time to Fly yesterday, who has the big funk night.
Yeah.
Just try to get people in the same building. There's a lot of people making these efforts. I feel there's a really robust alt indie scene happening that we I doubt we would play as many of the same bills as that, but we know them, and I like knowing those people, which is great.
Do you think that Charlotte is, I mean, I'm out playing too, but I'm doing a lot of covers. So do you guys find a difficulty wanting to be an original band, and then that struggle of like people are wanting to hear covers rather than original music all the time?
Not at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's difficult. I mean, it's been interesting just playing in Charlotte, and like we were saying, we're all big into the jam scene. You know, before COVID and everything, Charlotte would get a few jam band acts just going to their next city, going from Virginia to Atlanta. They'd stop in Charlotte and stuff like that, and there was always a good crowd at those concerts, but not enough to like pull a band to just play a show here without going on tour.
But it's also weird. There's like Charlotte jam shows always turn out, but I feel like there isn't, at least that I know of, like a guitar-driven jam rock band.
Right.
I feel like that was kind of a void that we saw, and we were like, we can milk this.
Yeah, that definitely is the case, and it's been interesting just playing these shows. I feel like there's a lot more jam fans in Charlotte than we really realized.
Everyone loves the Grateful Dead, man.
Yeah, and
at the end of the day,
and they're. We've gained attraction in that crowd. The Grateful Dead jam crowd that we didn't really know before.
I didn't know any of them.
Yeah, and then we have our friends here who love coming to our shows.
But they also like when Fish is in town, like they're at all those shows too. So
right.
Like,
yeah.
There's like a vacuum that we could just like add smoke to.
Where are you guys playing? We talked about it a little bit earlier as a larger group with 6 people. Where have you guys been playing before? I mean, of course, pandemic set in, so there hasn't been much opportunity at all. But where did you guys start playing when you were out performing?
The biggest thing we've done that we were able to pull off and do like safely for attendees was we've done stuff at Unknown Brewing, both indoor or in their warehouse and outside. The guys at Time to Fly were really helpful in like helping make sure we had like the sound to be able to play something. Well, so there's a weird whole process you have to deal with now that if you want to play for 100 people, you can't get a 100-person room. You need a 1,000-person room, and you need tables to spread people out, security. So, like, there is an operational strain that you have to account for now. So, like, big brewery spaces have been the number one thing, and Heist has been able to do that. We haven't played there, but like they've been able to do it good to the point where like I've gone and I've felt safe the whole time. So much respect to those guys for like, finding a way.
Yeah, there's very few large scale breweries in Charlotte. You have Sycamore Brewing, you have Old Mecklenburg. I don't know. I haven't been over to Unknown to see how large the space is, but I don't remember it being that large that you could have,
They have like back rooms that they clear out.
Okay.
It's like
their brewing warehouse. It's like a giant warehouse.
Like if you were to go to Unknown just on a normal day, you wouldn't be able to go into this room that they have in the back, like their brewing warehouse. And then when they have a band come in, like Joe said, it could probably fit 500 or so.
I think it's 800.
Yeah, it could probably fit 800 or so people. But we played our album release show there, and we had a max capacity of 100. Just to keep people spread out, but I mean it's a cool place, and we played in their parking lot as well for a big Halloween show.
Yeah. That was such a weird experience too. Like we were so excited, we like sold out our album release show. Like we've just started playing ticketed shows. Like had 100 tickets, we sold it out, and we were really excited about it. We were just like really really stoked. And then we get there, and you have 100 people spread out in like 1,000-person room, and we're like, yeah, sold out crowd. And you show up, and it's like heads sparsely scattered around like the whole room, and we're like, wait, there's no one here.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it's like you lose that like roar almost of intensity from people being crowded. It's
packed into the small.
Yeah, it's really weird. It was a bizarre experience.
It's probably going to be a while before we are able to pack people in closely. I mean, at least another year, I think. I mean, even with vaccine coming out, but
big vaccine fans here. Yeah. Big vaccine fans.
Hey guys, so what do you guys have coming up at all? I mean, I know it's pandemic time. You just had a recording come out. But what are you planning on doing over the next several months? Anything coming up for you guys?
What should we get into?
We've used this time to kind of formulate the songs and whatnot that we want to put on our next album. I mean, I think the next album is pretty far into the future. But we've been putting together songs. Everybody, you know, kind of writes something and sends it to the group. And we haven't, because of the holidays and everything, we haven't been able to get together for a few months.
This is the first time I've seen Brennan in a month.
You know, we are in constant communication every day about what we want to do and stuff like that. We haven't really formulated anything except just kind of putting song ideas together at this point.
Here's where I see it. We did the first album completely backwards. A lot of the songs we never played live when we recorded it. Some of the songs we had never even played as a band when we were recording it because we were like isolating. At one point, I was quarantining with my family in Raleigh. You guys were in Rocky Mount. Wood, Wilson, and Pat were in Charlotte. And we were like, we just started, like I started making the demos and like reference tracks that we would then play along to when we were tracking. Mm-hmm. And we had like never even played some of these songs. And it's funny to look back, like songs like Free Time and like Plasma Desmata as well and Failure too. Like songs that like don't really have big jam sections in the recording. But now when we play them, like Free Time has this really cool 2-chord jam that we do at the end of it that is not in the song at all. And now when we play it live, every time I love when we play that.
Yeah.
So now I think the intent is to then flip the pattern here and say like, hey, let's not rush into producing this right now, and let's get together and just like let's let the songs breathe. You know, let's play like a 30-minute version of whatever we're working on and see what clicks and see what falls on its face. Because you know we don't really have the option to test songs in front of audiences every weekend. So it's all internal discussions at that point.
Hey guys, so as we start to close things out, if people want to get in touch with Pluto Gang, how do we get in touch with you guys? How do we listen to your stuff? Can you fill us in?
www.plutogangmusic.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pluto Gang Band. Google it. Will be the first thing that comes up. Spotify, first thing that comes up. Apple Music, Amazon Music, you name it, we'll put it in front of you on that service.
What's our email? plutogangband@gmail.com?
Yeah, dox us, spam us.
Well, Dylan, Brennan, and Joe, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you guys.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. We appreciate everything you do for amplifying the voices. I've enjoyed listening to the episodes, finding out who else I need to get in touch with. You know, you're doing a cool thing here. We're grateful.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much. And that will bring episode 40 of the Queen City Music Podcast to a close. If you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, please check out our partner, Records on the Wall, at rexonthewall.com. Until next month, I wish you the best in the new year. Be well and stay safe.